It's been almost 40 years, but I'll never forget that day. It was hot and dusty. The sheep were hungry and thirsty. The grass was sparse. As we sweltered and followed the complaining sheep over the hillside, someone, I think it was Levi, pointed out that once again, Joseph wasn't with us tending the sheep under the hot sun. He's probably laying in the shade being fanned by one of the servants, Simeon remarked. Maybe he's making up another dream about everyone bowing down to him to tell our father, Judah said scornfully. It's the same old tale of favoritism, as old as the hills. We all knew Dad loved Joseph more than the rest of us combined. Let Joseph serve himself first. Joseph shall have the larger portion. Look, Joseph, I've made a beautiful new coat for you. We were so sick of it that we were barely speaking to Joseph. And that was before the dream started. Listen to this dream that I dreamed, he says. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. Then your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Look, I have had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. Even Dad had something to say about that one. What kind of dream is this that you've had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you? We were fed up. As the hours of sheep herding dragged on, we continued rehashing our grievances. Then suddenly there was Joseph in the distance, his image shimmering under the hot sun like a mirage. Someone, I don't remember who, said, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say a wild animal has devoured him, and we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But then Reuben spoke up. Let us not take his life. Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him. So we decided that's what we would do. You have to understand, we've been putting up with Joseph's superior air and our father's obvious preference for him for years now, with no end in sight. At least we wouldn't have to listen to any of his ridiculous dreams for a while. So when Joseph made his way across the field to us, we stripped him of his precious new coat and threw him into the pit. But then, when Reuben went off to chase a wandering lamb, a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead passed by our grazing spot. And we realized that in addition to putting Joseph in his place, we could profit from his circumstances. So we sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. To explain Joseph's absence, we dipped his coat in goat's blood and told Dad he must have been devoured by wild animals. Dad was distraught, of course, but there was nothing he could do. And we were finally rid of that annoying, haughty pest. A long time passed. We grew our crops, tended our sheep, and raised our families. Then the famine started. It was the worst food shortage we could remember. It got so bad that Dad sent us to Egypt to buy food. He said, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." Somehow, the Egyptians had had the foresight to stockpile grain when times were good. They had so much that the Pharaoh was selling grain to the citizens of Egypt and had enough left to sell to foreigners besides. When we got to Egypt, we were granted an audience with a local official who immediately accused us of being spies. Why is everyone so suspicious? How dare he question our motives? We are honorable men, sons of Jacob, respected in our own land. He threw us in jail and threatened to keep all of us, except one, to bring our younger brother Benjamin up from Canaan and prove that we weren't lying to him. Someone, it might have been Naphtali, said, "Alas, we are paying the penalty for what we did to our brother Joseph. We saw his anguish when he pleaded with us, but we would not listen." Then Reuben chimed in, all self-righteous. "Did I not tell you not to wrong the boy? But you would not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood." Who asked him anyway? I, for one, don't see a connection between the two events. I think Egyptians are selfish and suspicious of foreigners by nature. Finally, it was agreed that all but one of us could go back to Canaan with food for our families. Simeon was chosen to remain in the Egyptian prison. The food lasted for 2 years, but the whole time Dad was grieving for Simeon. When we told him we would have to return to Egypt to buy more grain and bring Benjamin with us, he said, "First Joseph dies, then Simeon is taken, and now you want to bring Benjamin to Egypt?" He was resistant, but the Egyptian official had insisted we would only be allowed to return if we brought Benjamin. Finally, Judah promised to be responsible for Benjamin, and Dad relented. We were pretty nervous when we were summoned to the official's dwelling. "He's going to enslave us and steal our animals," one of us said. And he had a point. Some people can be really deceitful and cunning, you know? We were surprised when the officials sat down with us for a meal. We should have known it was too good to be true. Next thing you know, as we're returning to Canaan with the food we purchased, we're overtaken by the Egyptian officials' men. They demand to open our packs, and when they do, they find all the money we paid for the food, as well as the official's own silver cup, which was found in Benjamin's bag. We had paid honestly and fairly for the food that was sold to us. We had stolen nothing. How did this happen? God only knows. We hurried back to the official's house, hoping to clear up the misunderstanding. What happened next defies belief. As Judah pleaded with the official not to imprison Benjamin, the official suddenly began crying and revealed himself to be Joseph. Joseph, who we had cast into the pit. Joseph, whom we had sold into slavery. So many years had passed that we didn't recognize him at first, but he was our brother. Astonishingly, he didn't seem angry with us. The first thing he did was ask about Dad. Then he told us that it was not we who had caused him to end up in Egypt, but God. That Joseph always with the hubris. Our situation greatly improved after that. Joseph urged us to move with our families to Egypt, where we would be fed and provided for, and to bring Dad. We settled in the region of Goshen, obtained land, and prospered. Dad lived another 17 years and died at the age of 147. Well, that pretty much brings us up to date. 39 years have passed since we sold Joseph into slavery as a boy of 17. A long time. A lot of water under the bridge. Although we had wished to harm Joseph, he prospered in Egypt, and now he answers only to Pharaoh. It seems his boastful dreams have come true, and we are utterly beholden to him. He never mentions it, but we know that he knows that if not for him, we would have starved in Canaan. When we came to him in need, he forgave us and brought our families to this land. Why would he do that? Maybe he was just laying in wait to take his revenge after Dad was gone. What if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong we did to him? Someone, I think it was Zebulun, said, let's tell Joseph that before he died, Dad's last words were, say to Joseph, I beg you, forgive the crime of your brothers and the wrong they did harming you. So that's what we did. Joseph reacted strangely. He started crying again. Was he crying tears of rage? Was he grieving because he knew we were lying to him? This could be bad. Much as it irked us, we were dependent on him for our very lives and our families' lives. So we humbled ourselves before him, throwing ourselves on the ground and telling him, we are here as your slaves. Then it got even stranger. Joseph said to us, do not be afraid. Who do you think I am to judge you? God? He spoke kindly, reassuringly. Have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones. Do not be afraid. Have no fear. Doesn't he realize what a dangerous world we live in? How untrustworthy people are? I just don't get it. Amen.